Okay, thank you for tuning into the Stampscapes channel. This is another scene, yet another scene, stamped on the Staples 110 pound plain uncoated cardstock. And going back to my hybrid inks again and trying them in a kind of a split fountain gradation of kind of a rainbow, hue back in the background. Playing around with that type of application of media in that manner on this paper just to see how much it can really take in terms of the number of coats and just the sheer amount of layering of media on here. And I thought it took it rather well. I really like the way this scene came out. I don't know how many layers of colors are on this area with both the colors and white pigment ink. Okay, and if you watch this video, you'll see where I've sandwiched white ink in between colors, reapplied the white over the top of it in kind of more narrower types of applications, and just how we used all these colors were applied basically, including the white pigment ink with one paper towel. And look at this, we still have some open areas that we can use. But I used this Q-tip in here as a kind of a narrow applicator like this too, and that worked, really good. So, learning something new all the time in terms of application processes, techniques, applicators to use, and whatnot. But anyways, thanks for tuning in as always, and hope you enjoy the process of creating this scene if you choose to watch the video. Okay, I'm getting tired of talking about this Staples brand cardstock in terms of kind of its weaknesses and whatnot. I'm finding it to be just, when you're using it in conjunction with surface-oriented media, meaning media that's not going to be absorbing into the paper, I'm finding it works just as good as, well, maybe not just as good as coated cardstock, but it works pretty well. And I don't know if people would be able to tell the difference between a coated cardstock and a non-coated cardstock if you're just looking at the end result, okay? We might be able to tell certain things. I mean, to the, real discriminating eye, you might be able to see some different textures in here that you wouldn't get with a coated cardstock and something that's going to be more sealed and smooth. But, I don't know, just overall, I don't know, I'm finding that it works just fine. And I wouldn't say that that's a big surprise to me. Maybe a little bit, but overall, when I think about it, I mean, if media is just kind of floating on the surface of something, I don't know. I mean, it should work similar to another type of surface. Now, the application process, though, that might be the thing that's a little bit different in terms of the surface. Now, when I say surface-oriented media like charcoals or something like that, it's not getting absorbed into the paper. Now, something like this with the pigment inks, wet media, it's wet media that's not going to be absorbing so much into the surface, but this hybrid ink is a combination of dye inks and pigment inks. Okay, the pigment inks are going to be very surface-oriented. You apply them down, they're not soaking into the paper as much as like a straight dye-based ink, but it is soaking in somewhat. Okay, so I'm finding that when you're applying the inks here, not only do we get a little bit of the texturing, but the application might be stronger the thinner the media is, wet media is. So dye-based inks and whatnot, if you just kind of lay something down, it's, you're getting a pretty solid application of that media very quickly. All right, so you just have to kind of adjust your rate at which you apply something. Like, for example, like that's a really solid application of media right there. Maybe what I need to do is I need to go just with a lighter touch like that, and then this is not too different from my methodology with dye-based inks on, say, glossy paper or just whatever coated paper. I like to apply it in kind of a light touch to begin with, and then I just go with a stronger application or a thicker application of the ink to get those stronger saturated tones, okay? So in other words, you just apply it lightly at first, and then just go, with repetition to get your stronger, more solid applications of that tone, whatever color you're working with, okay? And that's no different from dye-based inks. In terms of the process, now the process is going to feel different, but the end result will be somewhat similar, okay? But it's not bad. I mean, all this being said, when we're talking about, it's really nice to have some sort of media, or a lot of media, that's just readily available anywhere where you are in the world. You can go out and you can do this process right here. Okay, now I say that, but the Moonlight Duo pads are a little bit more obscure. The hybrid inks in general, this one's Moon in the Maker, and it has this added kind of bonus of the white pigment ink in conjunction with the hybrid inks here. But what I'm doing right here, you can kind of do with straight pigment inks, okay? The non-hybrids. Or, what I always say is that this look right here, I mean, doesn't that look like pastels to you? It's like oil pastels or something. I mean, you can kind of play around with that. Now, these are oil-based hybrid inks, so, it stands to reason why these kind of look like oil pastels. It's like pigment plus a binder, in this case it's oil. Instead of it being in stick form, it's more of in a liquid form. Okay, so what I'm doing right here is I'm just trying to go for this rainbow type of effect. We used to call this a split fountain in graphic arts classes in high school. When we were doing silk screening, you just had a bunch of different colors, and then you kind of, take your squeegee and drag it across and, get that kind of rainbow effect. And that's what I'm going for right here. I'm just going for some sort of a little transitioning kind of swatch background, and I'm just kind of, I don't know, I'm just trying to play around with something very kind of quickly and, to get this background here done fast, somewhat fast. All right, so I'm just, I just grab these pads here, and I'm doing them in a transition, starting from light, medium, darker tones, or something like that. It's basically taking what I would consider to be somewhat of like a color wheel or something, and you're just breaking it up into the individual colors and then blending them together. You notice how I kind of bring that up, so that when I come in with the next color, there's that transition from this color to the next, but there's a more solid band of it at some point in time. All right, so anyways, this is getting kind of dark right here. The violet. And these are pretty fun to do. Kind of getting these backgrounds, and you notice I'm just using a paper towel here. Sometimes the best tools are just, not to be kind of, purchased, but just to be kind of discovered, right under our noses. I think a rag would be even better, or like something like an old sock would be perfect for this, Okay, now I'm going for a little vignette here. Notice how I'm kind of coming down on the sides like that. So this seems really quite open as a composition, but if you kind of vignette it like this, it contains the composition a little bit more and will kind of enclose our subject matter, whatever we end up using in here. I have an idea for just some trees in here, but it's just a little bit too light and uncontained in this area down here. So you just throw your vignette around here. This is the idea of like scenic staging, all right? It's not just scenic art. I mean, you can do this with any card that you're doing, but if you contain it, it puts your piece like on a lit stage, okay? It's like where the perimeter of a stage, if you're watching like a production, a play or something like that, the lighting isn't going to be, focused everywhere in the piece. It's going to be framing your subject matter. There's spotlights and floodlights and filler light, colored lights, I mean, all that type of thing going on. So now we have our compositional kind of foundation right here. Okay. Okay, now, what I was telling someone before was when I was talking about this texturing, okay, is I'm not really into this texture as is, just that sheer amount of patterning in there. It's a little bit too extreme for me to have that just everywhere in here. It's when I see that, I'm being made aware of, from a visual standpoint, one of the aspects of this paper that I consider kind of, it's a weakness when it comes to this style of, or this amount of media application, okay? So what we'll do is we can just smooth it out, and it's really easy to do with some white pigment ink. So I'll apply that over the top of this, and it should be good to go. I'll have a little bit of that texture. I don't mind some of it, to have texture like that, but where it's just apparent, from like top to bottom, I'm not really into it so much from a visual standpoint. I don't know. Some people might like it for its aesthetics, but it's not like it's a linen paper or something like that, or watercolor paper, where that's, it's a strong point of that paper. It's, you use that for the purpose of having that texture and kind of showcasing it. On something like this, it's just like, I don't know, we're kind of made aware, oh, that's just some cheap paper there, It's no different than, like, my copy paper or something like that, But, that being said, we can turn that weakness into a strength by having some of it, but just not everywhere. Okay, now this is what I'm doing too. I have a video on easy, I think I call it easy scenic lighting. I forgot what it was. If I was editing these videos, I would do a little pop-up thing that'll say video whatever, but if you look up, just easy lighting Stampscapes and you enter that in a search parameter, on YouTube it'll come up. But anyways, what I do, and this is a really easy, I don't know how you can get any easier in terms of concept, but see, here's just two areas of light. I had one big area, and then I just divide it. And you can divide it up high. This is just my horizon, point in the scene. That's what I'm going to use that for. I mean, you can have it down here, but there's just two regions. One ends up being kind of a light source, and one area ends up being kind of the reflected light. Now, these two have different colored lights, so it's not like a mirrored image, but I just wanted to go for some variation. Maybe this is top and this is bottom or something like that. I don't know. It's all up to you, but it's just we took one area of light and just made it 2 by dividing it. I mean, you can do 3. We can divide this one up down here. You know, you can put striations across there if you want to. There's all kinds of things you can do. See, like this. Now, I wouldn't say, you know, one is better than the other or something like that. It's just, you know, it's whatever you want to do. And it tends to, you know, it's an easy thing to do, and in terms of lighting and the oscillation of light, it makes you look really, you know, like we know what we're doing. And it's really nothing more than that. But doesn't that look like kind of like an abstract landscape? Just as is, and that's without any kind of imagery. But that's what doing these things, dividing up the light can do. Now see, this one comes in like this. I streaked it in from this one. It kind of tapers off like that. And see how this one kind of comes in here like this, and it tapers off like that? It's almost connected with this bottom one, but here it is again. It's kind of just tapering off like that. See, like that? And then suddenly, you know, that looks real kind of, I don't know, landscape-ish. And that's all you have to do. And don't be thinking, oh, that's, you know, that's easy for you to say. Hey, you know, all I did was go like this. That's all it is right there, you know? It's like this. Okay? Now there's different colors you can do it in. I mean, you could do it, I could have done it in a lighter tone, and it's just not as prominent. Okay, so here we go. We're doing this right here. Now see, here's what you don't do. You don't go like this and then up, right? You just do that swipe like that, okay? All right, so there's another one right there. So suddenly, I don't know, when you do these striations like that, it tends to look more like water, you know, when it's like these thin bands across like that. So, but it doesn't have to be, you know, it could be, I don't know, a meadow or something like that down there. Okay, so anyways, I don't know, I'm liking that more and more. You know, after I added those streaks, I think it looks a little bit kind of richer as a surface, like that. Okay, let's see, still using the paper towel here. Let's get it into a clean area. There's your tool, right? Okay, you know what, I think this looks pretty good without the white, but let's try some of it on here and just kind of... Now see, here's what I'm doing now, is I'm doing this wipe, and I'm going from the center out, and I'm kind of tapering it, okay? So it's like this. Okay? It's picking up some of that color, and of course it will. But this is where it kind of, it takes on kind of that spirit of a... like even more like pastels, like you're using like a white pastel over the top of it. And if I used a white pastel, it would kind of, you know, mix and drag some of that color out as well. We could spray seal this and then put some over the top of it, but I want this blend to take place. And what I keep doing is when this kind of picks up some of that color, I don't know if you can see that right there, some of that ink, it's kind of dragging it around, so I want to keep changing, you know, to a new location that's kind of pure to get that kind of pure color out there. I don't want to start going out here and then coming back in here and bringing some of this dark color back into here. That's what I want to kind of avoid here. But see that kind of smoothness now? It's a little bit more pastel based than this straight color, but look at this right here. Look at that glow. And see how this is really harsh in here in terms of that just straight color. Just a little bit of a, you know, kind of pigmenting, just kind of, it mellows it out a little bit. Maybe that's a little bit too dark, so you can kind of come in here and then remove some of it. It's like you're wiping it right off the surface, but I don't know. Watching that kind of develop like that, it's pretty fun to see. Now down here it's just darker in general, so maybe I'll use a little bit less of this. Maybe I put a little bit too much there. But this is really reworkable, okay? So I can put some of this down like this. Actually, it looks pretty good. I keep changing my mind, you know. See, look at that. I mean, I think that looks pretty nice. And then see, that texture now that I didn't like so much, it's it's kind of buried, so it's a little bit more subdued in there, but look at that. So it kind of looked like a kind of a hazy, I don't know, sunset, twilight type of landscape. It's kind of like abstract, like I was saying. So let's put a little bit more of this white in here. Okay. Now see, this is what I'm telling you, white pigment ink, it is just, it solves problems for me. With lighting, certainly, but a lot of it's with texture, depth, like visual depth. It expands the visual depth. It subdues things that I don't really like, but having that texture underneath there, I think looks pretty good now because it's just not everywhere. Here it looks really smooth, but look at that glow. Down here it's a little bit too much though. So what do we do? All we have to do is, remember this is kind of dry media and surface media. So you just go back, I just used another part of this paper towel. Let's go back in with this. Or, I don't know, maybe a lighter color. Yeah, let's try this one. I don't know, here, what is this? This is like a planetary purple. It's kind of plum. This one's more, what is the name of that one? It's lunar lilac. Yeah, lilac, like lilac right here, okay? All right, so let's come back into this now. See? So you can just keep working it. It doesn't have to be kind of a linear process. You go from this color to this color to this color, okay? Or this type of ink to this type of ink. You can bring it back around. Now you apply more of this one back in here, okay? So it's more of an kind of an integral process right here, you know, when you can kind of do something, go over it, and then come back with that same ink right over the top of it, okay? But look at that now. See that? See, bringing the, you know, those streaks back into it. But it's a little bit different now because I'm kind of bringing that streak over the top of pigment ink, okay? But it's the same process and concept there. All right, but see, look at that. Look at that haze in there and glow. It's almost kind of surreal, isn't it? All right, so let's bring some of these little kind of streaky actions. I didn't really do that up in the sky because I was on that other color back down there, but let's go with, let's start with this one again. Orange. Okay. It's not called orange, it's called Solar Flare Orange, okay. All right, so let's kind of bring this back in. Look at that. See that little kind of haziness? It's kind of brightens it up a little bit. Look at that intensity kind of developed there. Okay. Look at that. See, it's kind of intensifying it. Okay, because the white mutes it. Okay, it's like turning something. You add white to it, it becomes a little bit more pastel-like. Okay, but that being said, now that's kind of standing out a little bit too much. So what do? We just go back in. Okay, I'm running out of areas on my paper towel. We'll just go like this. It's like finger painting. Okay. All right, kind of just go on the inside and bring that around like so. That's why these pads have their own dedicated pad. Like if I'm using an orange, okay, and going down here, I'm going in here, I'm not like bringing purple into it or something. I don't think they, did it for like finger painting, but why not, Isn't your finger, though, like a perfect tool for everything? Your hands, okay? But everyone thinks, in terms of kind of applicators and crafting supplies, that it has to be some kind of external thing. That's all. I mean, I really like stylus tools because stylus tools were really comfortable in the hand. But isn't this tip right here So this tip right here, it's like the exact size of my finger, right? Like that. So that's why I like stylus tools a lot, but they're not being sold anymore or manufactured. So what do? There's your stylus tool tip, kind of, or something that mimics that type of look. So I don't know. I mean, it doesn't mean that don't use anything else, but sometimes don't, consider everything at your disposal when you're doing your pieces, your work. If you can't find something that's, that's working for you, like in your toolbox, look at your own hands or whatever. Or, in this case, look at that glow there with that red. Yeah, applicators, media, tools, whatever. I don't know, consider everything. I want to try something here. This isn't kind of within this color scheme. No, not really, but that blue is kind of related to violet, right? Because blue plus, pink and red make violet. But let's bring some of this down here. I think I'm just trying to go for as rich kind of a surface as I can. And also, we're playing around with this paper, this plain paper. It's starting to buckle on me. It's kind of starting to bow a little bit, but so does watercolor paper when watercolorists use it, and so on and so forth. And I do want this flat though, eventually, but you can always. I would probably spray it first, and then put it flat in a book or something like that. Spray seal it. I'm talking about. But yeah, look at that. It's kind of a fun surface here. I'm really working it hard here in terms of the layering. A lot of times I don't, go that far, but might as well see what it can do here while we're doing this. As far as a test goes, let's take some black here. Okay. Let's see how this applies. I really do like getting the paper at this point in time too when I'm working with this type of ink here, because it really starts to fill in the grooves and the application of media becomes much more surface oriented because I'm layering. I'm not really layering media on paper anymore. I mean, that's long since past. I'm applying it on the top of other media, like layers of other ink. And, in this case, it's a lot of other ink. Okay, this black right here, it's just kind of creating a little bit of a stronger vignette. Really light touch, because it's, it's pretty dark. Okay. The darker you take certain areas, whatever area of your piece that you're applying it to, the lighter the light areas are going to seem. Okay, by contrast, because, working with light, you're working with contrast. You make an area dark, the area next to it looks lighter by contrast, okay? So, in this case, for me on this one, I just want that kind of that glow there to be fairly light looking, and doing this type of thing on the perimeter kind of strengthens that glow as well. Look at that. See, there's those streaks in there, right? So just kind of practice on your tapered look. It's just gone like this. It's the natural motion of your hand. And you just kind of stick with that same area like that. See, like that? And it just gets tapered off because you're always going a little bit harder, and you're just wiping it off like that. That's the natural motion of your hand. And when you're staying with the real natural motion of your hand too, you're doing something in a very ergonomic manner. and that's not going to stress out your hands. I see some tools out there that are just, they are not ergonomically designed. It's like they were designed in like a, I don't know, like a concept, like on the computer or something like that. Or it's like someone's idea of a good application tool visually, you know, but it doesn't make it so in application and ergonomically. You know, something should be kind of shaped like your hand. Otherwise, you're gonna feel it. If you start feeling certain aches in your joints or hands, shoulder, neck, you're not using the tool the right way, or you're using the wrong tool. Like something like this is really good because it's real kind of it's very ergonomic. It's like finger painting or something like that. So just keep that in mind. I say that because, you know, I mean, something like this, I've done a lot of, you know, ink application on it. You know, there was a lot of streaks here, but my arms and things like that, it's not like I'm all, you know, you know, I don't practice at that motion like all the time, but, you know, when you go to it, it's a natural motion, and it feels completely natural, so, I don't know, just, you know, be aware of it, is what I'm saying. Okay, so, anyway, let's see here. I know I'm using this composition a lot, but it's like a perfect image to use for a scene like this, because it kind of divides up, you know, between sky and surface. In this case, it'll be water. VersaFine black. All right, dye-based inks are going to work on there, and the VersaFine is just, it's a pigment ink that's just perfect for detailed imagery, which Stampscapes imagery is. Okay, now I'm wiping off this area down here so I don't get a harsh line, okay? But I'm just dabbing it off like this. It's about an inch into it, and dab it off pretty good so that it's tapered, so it goes from wet to dry, and it stamps out dark, transitioning into light down here. And I'm wiping it off really good so that we don't get this line showing up down here, okay? But I do want that tapering, so I don't know. So you just have to kind of decide where you want this to go. I'm going to go a little bit kind of rule of thirds type of thing and stamp this a little bit higher in the composition. All right, now this is where I just never, I'm just not used to the textured, non-coated surface. Oh, I should have put some extra paper underneath this. If you're working with like an unmounted stamp too, I was showing in earlier videos, just using a brayer, you put your unmounted stamp down and just go like this across it. You don't have to go hard either, but that'll give you a really good impression. Okay. Okay, look at that. It's stamped out lighter than I thought it would when I lifted it off, but it looks perfect there. Kind of in the context of this scene, it's real dreamy. It sits back in there a little bit. I would say that it looks to me, instead of like a 100% black, it looks more like a 90% gray, so it looks distant. Okay, now we have this area out here, overlapped by about a 1/4 inch or so. Okay, with Stampscape stamps, 99% of the time, you don't have to do careful positioning. When people are kind of really stressed out about, let's say, using an unmounted stamp and not having this image stamped on the top of it, you don't need that. You want to overlap by a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch sometime. I would say 1/8 of an inch to a 1/4 inch, but that's that much leeway, right, in there. And that's how you get the seamless aspect of imagery, because it's overlapping so much, okay? You don't need things, don't think of it like a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle where you're adding things edge to edge, okay? So just overlap more than you think you'll need. You know, that's almost a better kind of way to think about it. That's more of, if you're just starting out, you're not being safer, kind of, not going up to it enough, or staying away because you're worried about an overlap. It's better to overlap. Now, don't overlap 3 inches or something like that, but you know what I mean. Okay, so anyways, there that is right there. Okay. Now, what I like to do is I like to come into my scenes. Now, this is what I'm kind of forgetting to do sometimes when I'm doing these tests right here, because I'm really testing out the surface quality a little bit more than I am, going for a high, a very highly realized and finished looking piece here. Okay, so what I'm getting is that I haven't been adding my shadows very much. So once I get these images stamped down like this, I like to kind of enhance my shadows a little bit. So I'll go in here and add some shadows to these rocks. Okay, see the shadows down here and the reflections, like the base of the the rocks in here. I'm just adding more ink and reiterating that idea of the shading here. Okay. Can you tell the difference? See, when I added that shading down here at the base, it'll mellow out a little bit, but it doesn't look like the scene is kind of anchored in to the setting a little bit more now when you do that. Don't cover up everything, but you don't have to be gingerly about it either. But I'm going into some of these rocks, and I'm leaving the tops of some of these rocks a little bit lighter, just as they are in here. So, with a big thing like this, I have to be careful not to put too much in there. So I'm kind of just lightly dabbing this at the base of those more distant rocks in there. And it's just kind of going like that. See, that's like it's like a very light shade of gray there. I'm not doing this or something like that. You're just, adding that little bit at a time. Okay? Okay, look at this. I got a bunch of fingerprints up there somehow. It's off my fingertips here. But one of the things about, this ink, right, is you can just kind of go back in. Let's take some of this yellow maybe and just kind of go right back over it like this. And you can do it with the white as well or whatever. Be careful, don't go over that VersaFine too much. I don't know if it's, smear it or not, but just kind of be aware. All right. Let's hit it with some yellow and white on here. Again, remember the Moonlight Duo kind of mixture thing. You can use, stuff in combination with one another. Let's get a little bit more white on that. Okay, so let's add some more imagery to this and let's finish it off. Let's put another shoreline in here. Okay. This is a pretty fun project. This would look much, much different if I did it in dye-based inks. It would have a, much stronger vibrancy and saturation, on like glossy cardstock. But this, I believe, has its own aesthetics to it. It's the softer, type of pastel look. I don't know, maybe it's more tranquil or something like that than, say, vibrant and stunning from a color standpoint, just sheer, rich saturations. This one has this kind of mellower vibe to it. It's kind of a quiet, I don't know, a quiet emotional quality to it, a quieter one maybe, than say, sheer intensity, color intensity. It's probably from that white too. I think it's the white pigment ink that's doing that. It just, it mutes things. From an intensity standpoint and value standpoint, it lightens it up too. Okay. All right. You can spray seal this with a workable fixative and then stamp these images right over the top of it. In my last video, it worked just fine. And I was stamping it over charcoal, which is not something that you can stamp over without the, if it's missing a spray fixative sealant on it. Okay. I'm probably holding this down longer than I probably need to, but kind of better safe than sorry. Anyways, that was the Pines and Rocks, large. It's just called Pines and Rocks. This is Lakeside Cove. Large. Trying to decide on something in here. I think this would be really fantastic for a quote stamp. Oh, boy. I think a quote would be perfect for in there. You can put one down here, too. I think it's light enough to where it would show, but it seems more appropriate for the sky. But look at that texture. Doesn't that, I don't know, when you look at it close, doesn't it look a little bit kind of pastel-ish? Like I said, pastels, oil pastels are, it's just pigment in stick form, with the binder of being oil. It's just much thicker and condensed, but pigment inks are, pigment and oil, but just in much more liquid form. So, I mean, the application process is going to be different than, using a stick on here, but I don't know. Fun stuff either. Okay, so let me go find a quote here, and I'll figure out if I want to use that or not. Okay, I think I found, there's a number of scenic sentiment quotes that would be perfect for this, but nature always wears the colors of the spirit is one that I was kind of leaning towards right up here. I don't know, color would be certainly one to go by, but a lot of things can work, but I think I'm going to go with, I want to have something down in here. Okay, so I want to create this visual dialogue between a quote and what's going to go down here. I wasn't going to put this little kayaker or something like that down here, but if I pair it with a good, like a traveler type of thing, I think it would be perfect. But a good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent on arriving. I thought that would be really good up here, and then we can put a little kayak or something like that down here, so it creates this visual dialogue between I don't know, top and bottom, and far and near, I don't know, something like that. These scenic sentiment quotes, I always wanted to do those, and I thought from a design standpoint these would be pretty easy to do, because I just, you just put them at the typesetting, but I took a typesetting class, a lettering class in college, and I'm an illustration major, an art major, but you still have to take, whatever your choices of various design classes, industrial design, basic 2D design, and I took lettering and typography, and the guy that was teaching it was the head of the the graphic design department, and he was known for being, you know, no nonsense and tough, and it was the toughest class I ever took. So that being said, when I did these quote stamps, I labored over every minute space between letter forms, words. The text had to be perfect, but just in the letting in between these spaces right here, spacing in between each word. I mean, it was crazy in that graphic design class. Lettering. I mean, you had to get, and we were hand lettering too. And you had to have everything absolutely perfect. And I can't tell you how many nights I was awake doing the assignments for that class, but it was the best thing because it really taught you kind of the ins and outs of typography and fonts and letting and, you know, spacing, everything like that from a visual standpoint. Okay, I feel lucky that I got that pretty straight on there, but that's why I did these. I did these 4 impressions, you know, before I stamped it down. So I don't have a stamp positioner. If you have a stamp positioner, it'd be a little bit easier. But I don't know. That's why I do those practice ones. If you practice it out, you'll be, you know, in pretty good shape. Okay, so let's see here. There's this little canoeist right here. That would be perfect too. The solo canoe. I think I'm going to use my little kayak or something. Pause this again here. Okay, I found another thing too that I wanted to use on here that I was thinking about before, but I kind of forgot about. But that's this tree, a leafless pine tree. These pine trees, these leafless ones, always really come in handy in terms of textural variety and in depth too, but mostly textural variety. Okay, we're going to do it again in versifying. Okay, and we'll put it right down here. There's so many different pine trees in the foreground like that. Just having a kind of a dead one, it just... When you do something like that, it's like, oh yeah, that... It really kind of needed it, you know? I could put another one down here or something like that. Yeah. Let's just go with a little peekaboo version of one down here. I'll just use a little tip of the tree like that. See, like that? I mean, one over here would be okay too. I think that's enough though. By the way, this is tack and peel on my acrylic blocks. That's what I use to stamp out my, you know, unmounted rubber stamps. Okay, this is my little kayaker side kayak. Okay, and I think I'll put this little kayaker. You can put it down low or you can put it up higher. It changes the context of this from a visual standpoint. Like if you put this kayaker right up here, then by relation, you can see how large those rocks are if I put them up here. But if I put them down lower, you're saying those rocks are larger, right? Because they're the same size, but you're just putting this figure lower. So you're saying that this is, you know, kind of a little bit farther away visually. But just from a visual standpoint, I'm going to put this little kayaker in this little lighter area, you know, of that white pigment ink, just so you can see it a little bit easier, like so. Okay. So here we go. Good traveler has no plans, fixed plans, and is not intent on arriving. Lao Tzu. I don't know how you pronounce that, but a little character down here. I think it needs a little bit of an anchoring shadow, but I'm a little bit hesitant to do that right now, while that's still a little bit, the impression is still a little bit wet. But let's do a little bit of fine tuning here on the scene now. See where there's this little streak of that white there? I think we can use another one back in here. Let's see if I can find a clean piece of paper towel. I tell you what, let's do this right here. I'm going to put this Q-tip right back in here, so it'll give me this little stiff, kind of narrow part, okay? And let's go into some of this white pigment ink here. I don't know, it might be too hard of a... It might be too hard of an applicator. Let's see. I think this pigment ink on there is dry. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's see. Yeah. It's working okay. It's a little bit too light. Let's go like that. So it kind of tapered it back into there, you know, like a little bit of it's a real thick streak, a little bit, you know, thinner, thinner, thinner. So it kind of transitions it a little bit. Make it a little bit lighter in some areas, just so it's not so kind of uniform in there. Okay. Okay, let's see if I can, let's use the same Q-tip kind of idea. Let's go to a different area of this paper towel here. Let's put a little bit of black ink on it. Okay, and let's go down and add a little shading. So you kind of, it kind of anchored it a little bit of shade down in there. But I don't know, in reality, the thing that I should shade it with is actually a darker version of that hue that's in that. So let's put a little bit of purple, or violet, or was that orchid? Let's put a little bit of that orchid color down here in the shadow. Okay, something like that. It looks a little bit better. Maybe it's a little bit too much. Here, let me put a little bit of white on this now. And let's go into that just so it's not just solid. Maybe I invented a new tool. It's called the blending towel frame. I don't know, something like that. I'm joking. Okay, let's see. I still see a little bit of a smudgy little fingerprint up here. My fingerprint. My smudginess. Now I have this big smudge of white in there now. Okay. Let's go back over it with some yellow. Okay, and it should be kind of close now. All right, this is interesting. I thought it was going to go like really fast, but I don't know. If I like the way something's getting kind of coming out, I get kind of caught up in it. It's like that you keep adding things to it. I mean, that background, that first, the color swatch, that split rainbow, that came about pretty fast. But it's all these little details, that I like adjusting things with. Okay, this is going back with some of that plum-looking color. All right, how's that look? So, I don't know. I mean, you'll have to tell me if the Staples paper, hampered it. I don't think it did. I think this looks pretty good. Maybe it does just from this, this bending kind of curling aspect of things. But like I said, you can just, I would mount this on something anyway. I wouldn't just send it to someone like this. This is, it's all inky on the back as well, probably. But, we would format this and, send it out that way. But I think it looks pretty good. And, I mean, a better quality paper maybe would look a little bit better, but I don't think this looks too bad. So I'm pretty happy with it. I think with this black ink right here, I think I'm going to spray fix this because I think I seem to recall that VersaFine black on top of white pigment ink, it kind of running. So I'm going to go spray this and I'll come back and I'll see if it increases the intensity of this at all. I'm not sure. Okay, I think hitting this might have increased the intensity a little bit. What do you think? I used a workable fixative, like Krylon, and I just gave it some really light sprays, especially right up here, and I don't know, all over the place, but we'll see how that dries, but I think it might have fixed it down. I'm not sure. It's completely dark. I'm doing this after midnight right now, so it was really hard for me to see how much I'm really kind of applying to it. But anyway, okay, so interesting process right here. I think the thing that I got out of this lesson tonight, the Moonlight Duos, the hybrid inks, didn't surprise me too much. It's a highly textural piece, but where you put that layer of white over the top of it, it really kind of smooths it out, but you get some of the benefit of having it textured, but not just where it's just completely kind of that pebbled all over the the entire piece. Again, I think it looks somewhat like a a pastel type of piece. And with that comes with that kind of that softer type of overall look. There's a certain type of kind of quiet harmony to the colors and applications on there. And not only for the surface, but it's that white pigment that you lay over the top of it. But here's what I like about using these types of inks like this, or things like pastels or charcoals and whatnot, dry media and surface-oriented media. You can't really remove, this after it's been applied. You can a little bit, but you can just keep layering it and layering it, layering it. Transparent media, like dye-based inks, when you lay it down, you're just pretty much getting darker and darker and darker. You can't put a light blue over the top of a dark blue and have it look light. But on something like this, you can lay a dark violet down and then go back over it with a little bit of a lighter pink. And that pink, you can kind of see the influence over the top of a darker color, okay, because it's like it said, it's laying right on the top of it. These are transparent, translucent, okay? But then, here's the thing, you can go, the white always will apply right over the top of it. And then it can be a layer that's sandwiched in between. You can go color, 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 white, go color over that, go white over that, color, you know what I mean? It's just never ending, and that's what's really fun about this process right here. It's in some ways there's not like a point of no return in terms of the coloring aspect of things. I can't just wipe out, you know, those impressions that I made there, but you can still adjust your colors and whatnot, you know, accordingly. Okay, so anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed this scene and seeing how it can come out like this. I wasn't really planning on this. I was just planning on doing some tall trees in front of that, you know, kind of that overall transitioning glow like that. But, you know, when I showed, I wanted to demonstrate that kind of those two zones right here in terms of light. Then it kind of became more of like a sky surface looking kind of format to me. So, you know, the Lakeside Cove went in there. Okay, so anyways, thanks again for watching. Thanks as always for tuning into the channel. And hope you find all the tools that you're looking for, you know, right underneath our noses and what we've been using for years. They certainly, I don't know, I don't feel like I'm lacking for anything when I'm using those types of things. And if anything, it just feels like a better applicator and whatnot, you know, using your digits and things like that for an ergonomic type of application of your media. Okay, until the next scene video. Thanks again for watching.